This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claim School Incorporated's blog, Zalma on Insurance. Today we're speaking about why, no matter how serious an injury, a policy of uninsured motorist coverage will never change its wording, and the court must apply the policy as written. And therefore, when an underinsured motorist policy is stated to be reduced by limits paid by other underinsured motorist coverages, the court must apply the conditions of the policy as written. Insurers faced with a serious injury filed an interpleader action involving the insurance coverage for survivors of a tragic auto accident. The Smet Insurance Company of South Dakota proposed distribution of the available insurance funds that had been paid into the court, since none of the insurers was willing to say that their coverage exceeded the injuries actually suffered. In a case entitled Hallmark Insurance Company, the Smet Insurance Company versus the Hoefert Family et al., the United States District Court for the District of South Dakota on January 29, 2024, resolved the dispute on how to dispense the funds that had been placed into the control of the court. The Hoefert family-Jennifer, Andrew, Jennifer's daughter, and the two young children of Jennifer and Andrew were traveling on Interstate 90 in rural Montana. The driver of a Chevrolet Suburban crossed the center line, striking the Hoeferts' rental car and killing himself and all occupants of the Hoefert car except the two young children. The latter were seriously injured and are currently under the guardianship of Gail and Kerry Hoefert. Plaintiff Hallmark insured the tortfeasor and filed an interpleader action to determine the liability of the insurance companies to the survivors. Hallmark tendered $50,000, the amount of coverage in its policy. Two other insurance companies are involved. National Casualty insured the rental car occupied by the Hoefert family, which carried coverage of $50,000 that had been tendered to the court. Smet was the insurance company of the Hoeferts, who had an uninsured motorist policy of $500,000. Smet has tendered $400,000 to the court in satisfaction of the Hoefert estate's claims. The insurance policy Smet provided to the Hoeferts listed underinsured motorist bodily injury, $250,000 each person, $500,000 each accident. The Smet policy provided, quote, the limit of liability shown in the declarations for each person for underinsured motorist coverage is our maximum limit of liability for all damages, including damages for care, loss of services, or death arising out of bodily injury sustained by any one person in any one accident. Subject to this limit for each person, the limit of liability shown in the declarations for each accident is our maximum limit of liability for all damages for bodily injury resulting from one accident. In addition to their serious physical injuries, the surviving children of the Hoeferts have experienced the tragic loss of their parents and older sister. Apart from the emotional impact, the economic loss has been and will continue to be significant. The court realized that the payment of the insurance proceeds at issue in this case will only compensate a part of their total losses. The disagreement presented to the court was how to calculate the proper payment of the insurance coverages. The Hoeferts insurance policy with Smet provided $500,000 in underinsured motorist coverage. The policy also provided in Section D, Other Insurance, that the maximum amount that will be paid is the, quote, highest limit of underinsured motorist vehicle coverage that the insured specifically requested under any one policy. This means that if a person with a Smet policy of this type purchased, for example, an umbrella policy from another insurer, which included underinsured motorist coverage of $500,000 and thought this was increasing the UIM coverage to $1 million under both policies, the person would in fact receive no additional UIM coverage because the language of the Smet policy limits it to the highest limit of any one policy. Because the estates were compensated $100,000 by the other insurers, Smet claimed, based on the policy wording, that it owes only the amount of what is said to be uncompensated damages remaining, amounting to $400,000. The damages for which no compensation will be received clearly exceeds $500,000. Smet has moved for summary judgment, arguing the issue presented is legal and factual. Smet deposited with the court $400,000 that it believed was all it owed. The total amount Hoefert Estates would receive is $500,000. Hoefert Estates argued that they calculated their rights differently, and the total for the estates under that argument would be $550,000, taking into account the fact that there are two UIM coverages involved in the case. However, South Dakota's statute authorizing payment of underinsured motorist damages that are uncompensated and the provisions of the insured's Smet policy, because Hallmark and National together compensated the estates in the amount of $100,000, Smet is responsible for only $400,000 under the statute and its policy with the Hoeferts. In my opinion, there is no question that the various insurers owed money to the estates. They deposited into court the amounts they believed was owed under the terms of their policies and statutes of the state of South Dakota. They paid their limits. They were not required to pay more than their limit. The court read all the policies, applied the terms in the South Dakota statutory law, and concluded that the policies must be enforced as they were written, and the estates were only entitled to the highest limit of underinsured motorist coverage available, $500,000. They would have loved to have given the estate a lot more money, but it wasn't there, and no court will add additional coverages that don't exist and weren't paid for. This video was adapted from my blog, Zelma on Insurance, which is available free to anyone who clicks on the URL zelma.com/blog. You can subscribe to the blog and you'll be given notice of every blog posting, usually 5, sometimes 6 a week. And you can also subscribe for free to the videos at YouTube or at rumble.com. And if you do, I'd appreciate it if you click on the like button at YouTube or the thumbs up button at rumble.com. Please tell your friends and colleagues about the blog and the videos and let them also subscribe. And if you're interested in further detail about insurance, insurance law, insurance claims, and insurance fraud, please consider subscribing for a very small fee to my Substack publication. Thank you for your attention.